Hello, and good whatever part of the day or evening it is for you. I record these usually very late at night. I get a little comfortable here, but I have no idea what time you look at them. Going to talk about a couple, three things tonight. You may notice I promoted myself to Survivor. Very glad to do that, even if it was a self-promotion. So tonight I'm going to answer a couple of questions, dwell on a little philosophy, and share some hidden gems that if you ever see them at a Goodwill store or inexpensively at a small convention auction or whatever, snag them up because they didn't do all that well when they came out, but I think they're well worth a second look. And I'm going to be referring to some notes because I wrote up a bunch of these for Gygax magazine, and a bunch of them didn't get used. Some got used, some didn't. If I'm going over one that got used, sorry to waste your time. I can't remember which ones are which. So I'm going to my little fuzzy here. That didn't seem to do much good. I thought it was a little dusty. So anyway, let's start out with a little philosophy, shall we? Why do you play games? I'll tell you why I play games. Two reasons. The first one was because when I started playing games, I was playing simulations, and I saw them as the ultimate problem-solving exercise, which I was very much into. I played, as I've said earlier, lots of different games, chess and bridge and all that kind of stuff. And I discovered these games, and it was infinitely more challenging, in my opinion, even though back then the games were awfully simple with their combat results table and their six-sided die and figuring combat odds and what have you. But I took to those games, that type of game, for the problem solving. It was later that I developed my taste for other kinds of multiplayer board games when I had multiplayers around to play with. In my early stages, I only knew one or two other gamers at any given time, and they're the ones that I played games with. Now that I had, at the club at college and whatever. Why do I play games now? Well, I still like the challenge, but I really play for the social aspect. I have a circle of friends. We've known each other since, good grief, no later than the mid-'80s, I guess. They were all single at the time, and we played a lot of games together. We were involved in running the local con for a few years. And then one by one, they found ladies that were willing to overlook the fact that they were gamers. And most of them ended up married and having children and whatever. And so we didn't play for a good number of years. But a couple of years back, when I got a hold of them, said, hey, let's do it again. I was like, yeah, okay, let's get the band back together. And we fell into it. And now we play multiplayer games. There's 5 of us, used to be 6. So we're looking for, large multiplayer games. And there are several out there, some of which I'll share with you in a few minutes. And we play for the backstabbing, the broken promises, the host jobs, the laughs, being there for each other when something serious is going on in their lives. But mostly it's the laughs. And there's a member of our little group that is like at best chaotic neutral, and sometimes he veers into chaotic evil. Just loves throwing a monkey wrench in the works. He's a good gamer, and he wins his, at least his fair share, if not more. But he also just loves screwing with people. So we all, we love him, and we invite him back every time. We try to play every other Wednesday. There are a couple of us that like to kvetch and chip and wine and what have you, just as part of what goes on. And everybody's personality is pretty well known by the rest of the group, who you can trust and who you can't, which is basically you can't trust anyone. But we play for the fun, the repartee. Sometimes we might call out for, pizza or something. Sometimes we don't do anything at all. We're there for we're there to play, and we're there to have fun, and we're there to enjoy each other's company. And some of the games we play are silly, and some of them are quite intriguing. And I'll give you a few examples. And I'm going to have to refer to my notes here a little bit, which is why I'm wearing my cheaters tonight, because I have to look at some of I wrote these up a couple of years ago, and I want to make sure I hit the right points. I just know they're all games that I like. So pardon me when I have to lean down and look. I don't have a teleprompter where I can do this. First one I'm going to talk about is 11, 12 years old now. It's called Silk Road. It's by Z-Man Games, designed by Ted Cheatham and Bruno Feudality. It's 3 to 6 player. It's a bartering game, and not a lot of adventure as we might know it today. It's billed as a game of bartering and adventure along the historic Silk Road, but it is a lot of fun. We don't always play it now because one of our group really got tired of a slang word nickname that we did to this game, and he just anyway. The interesting thing is, if there's 5 players, there's only 4 deals in whatever town you lead the caravan on in your turn. Everybody takes a turn being the caravan master. So you try to get people to go where you've got a deal, and so somebody's always left holding the bag. And then they automatically become the caravan master the next turn and determine where the caravan goes next, following along the Silk Road. You can bid, become the caravan master, and pay the guy who would be stuff. So it's an interesting interactive game. I'm not going to go into great detail, but it's fun and it's simple, and you can play a couple, 3 games a night. When I say a night, we generally play from like 7:30 to 11:30 at the latest. But the game is fun. However, the little wooden counters aren't painted very well, and they become to be hard to read. Next game that I found, it was just a silly fun. Let's all, have some laughs games for 3 to 5 players. It's called Highland Clans, put out by Queen Games in 2008. It was also known as McRobber. And that's what this game. You want to become the laird that wields the most power and influence, and you do raiding, stealing cows, and political intrigue. It's light on the minutiae and detail, but it's heavy on the gameplay. It's again a game. You don't know what you get to do in your turn. That's given by chance, your possibilities. So it's a lot of fun. Another one that we really, really enjoy. This is 2 to 4 players, so we don't get to play this one often. It's called Serenissima. You'll see it spelled in the front here. It was by Eurogames, the first edition in 2006. Asmodee put out a second edition in 2012, designed by Dominique Erhard and Duccio Vitale. This is a European design. It's a trading game. You're trying to connect monopolies in various ports, lock up certain commodities. You have some dicey diplomacy. There is an abstract form of combat that all it seems as often as not is going to backfire on you. And again, it has something that makes fun for our group because you can make a deal. If somebody's in an ocean square, you can ask the person that's there, hey, is it okay if I go through? And they can say yes or no. Well, they can also say yes. And then when it comes time to your turn, no, I decided no. And so, again, it's one of those backstabbing games that at least my group seems to have fun. We also play stuff like Power Grid, and we play a lot of the Ticket to Ride games. So, we do play the normal stuff, but these are some interesting ones I've found. Here's another one from Mayfair back in 2008. It's a very small box, and it's park cards, and it's called Bacchus, the god of wine and partying, Banquet, the glory and gluttony of Rome. It's designed by Frederick Morrison, 3 to 5 players. And it's this is one of the real silly ones. It's awful lot of fun. It's all about not eating because everybody has a belt buckle. And you go to these parties, you're at these banquets, and you don't want to eat too much. You want to force other guys to eat too much. If your belt buckle pops, you're hosed, you're out. Somebody's playing Caligula, but nobody knows who it is except Caligula. And so I think, no, wait a minute. Okay, the thing is, everybody has a different agenda, and only Caligula is known at the beginning. That's right. I had to check on this. It's real fun, especially for a group that plays together regularly, because the agendas change. And again, there's lots of places for screwing around with people. Another silly one that's really quite fun, and this one can even be used as like a 45-minute warm-up until the last person shows up. It's called Bridge Troll. It's from Z-Man Games. It came out in 2009, designed by Alf Siegert, 3 to 6 players. And the thing I wrote about this is, I bet you never knew how nourishing a princess can be. Everybody plays a troll that has a bridge. Everybody's got their own bridge. And every turn there's a bunch of tourists that come up. And so you hope to get the fattest, juiciest one to use your bridge, so you can either eat them and become stronger or hold them for ransom. And you have rocks that you throw at each other's bridges. And it's silly, but it has interesting mechanics, and it's fun. And that's a lot of what my group does. We'll some nights we'll just play silly games just because we enjoy it. Speaking of silly games, now this is designed by a good friend of mine, but it doesn't make any difference. If you get a chance to grab a copy of a game called Feudality, it was put out by Z-Man in 2011, designed by Tom Wong. This is one of these games that plays differently every time, because there are different little map boards. Everybody has their own map board. There are little counters for the things that you put into your fief. You protect your fief. You build your castle up stronger. There's raiders. There's dragons. You attack each other. Go to war. The king screws around with you. The queen screws around with you. It never plays the same. It's a real good game for backstabbing and stuff, because there's several things that can happen in there that you get to send this little dude that eats half the other guy's food supplies just because he's there. It's great fun, and it plays again and again and again. All these games have replayability. Unlike simulation games, you can play these again and again and reasonably expect to get a different outcome. And when I wrote this, the game was becoming scarce, and now all of a sudden someone's put out another edition. It's called Fire and Axe, a Viking Saga. It first came out by the guys that designed it. They're called the Ragnar Brothers, and it came out with a cloth map, and rolled up in a tube, and it was kind of cute. And then Asmodees, and then Pro Ludo, and then the Ragnar Brothers. I think it first came out in like 04. It was called Viking Party. Anyway, it's 3 to 5 players, and it involves raiding and settling and exploration. And it's in a very abstract or a strategic sense. No blood, no axes, anything like that. The sagas, there are sagas in each of the 3 eras that take place during the game. And the sagas each have different requirements, like be the first to visit this city, that city, and this city. And when you complete that saga, then you get to keep it for what it's worth. And you don't have to be the one that completes all 3 of them. You can be the one that sneaks in and gets the 3rd one and beats the other guy, and so hose him out of it. So there again, it's one of those games that really lends itself well to hosing over your buddies and making deals and sending them back to their home port. And it plays differently every time, because you don't know in what order the sagas are going to come up, where you're going to be when it happens, whatever. I value that type of game quite a lot. The type of game that you can play again and again and again. The Ticket to Ride games, particularly the new ones, quite fun, Rails and Sails. But all of them are fun to play, and replayability is very high. One of the little tiny games, oh shoot, I don't remember the name of it exactly. It's the Tiny Kingdoms people put one out. I think it's called Tiny Universes, Tiny Universes. You fly out and you colonize planets and what have you. We use that as a warm-up game. It plays us differently every time. We have others. I play for fun. I play for problem solving. Sometimes the problem is how to keep 2 of my buddies from stabbing me in the back. But hey, that's okay too, because when it's all said and done, I walk them all out. I see them off. If something, we're still friends at the end of the night. Now, sometimes the intensity level in role playing becomes such that you can't always say that everybody's friends at the end of the night. Hopefully it doesn't happen often, but we've never had a board game night where everybody went home, and anyone ever went home mad. So they're very social, and I enjoy them quite a lot. Miniatures games are much like that as well, because they can involve 4 or 6 or even 8 players, depending upon the size of the battle and how you want to break up the commands and what have you. So I play for the social as well as the competitiveness. Now, when I go to cons, that's a whole different ball game, because there I'm just there to entertain. I'm having fun, but I'm also there to entertain the players that use valuable points or spent money or whatever to sign up into my game. And in keeping with my old magazine philosophy, I've taken to them now that on those that I can drive to and take my own prompts and games, I'm no longer just running RPGs. I'm running I've got a board game. It's more board game than miniatures, and I'm going to be running at Gamehole next weekend. The other one is, I guess you could call it miniatures, though we're using the old Whiz Kids, Pirates of the Caribbean, Pirates of every body of water, Pirates of the Stagnant Swamp. We're using the old pretty plastic snap them together ships out of that. I'm going to run a great big giant Viking sea battle where they're going to lash their ships together and fight it out. And if you watch Vikings on the History Channel, think of that opening credit with those dead guys sinking into into the bottom of the bay, and that's what inspired me to make this game together. So it'll be great fun. The other one's a simulation of dirt track stock car racing, and then I'm going to run. I'm going to run a couple of. I'm going to run a couple of regular, as regular as my games get, regular RPGs. So that's what I'm doing, and it's a little of this, a little of that. I'm running the RPGs to tell a story and to have fun and to enthrall my players. And I'm running the board games, teaching people games. The dirt track racing thing, I found the rules for that online a couple, 3 years ago, after I'd been hopping around looking at this and looking at that and just stumbled upon these. And it's great fun. I find it just as much fun to play as Circus Maximus, which, if you know my background, I started running tournaments for Avalon Hill back in 83 or 84. And I corrupted Gary Kahn, who now runs one every year. I corrupted Nortex, North Texas RPG Con. They run Circus Maximus now, though they took it only where Texans could take it, with armor plating and all sorts of silly stuff. But that's the point. It's silly stuff, but they have fun doing it. Would I want to play? No, because I don't know all about all those weird weapons they got. But the fact that they're having a great time, that's swell. Let's see. I got some other notes here and some questions I was asked. I was asked about the relationship between TSR and Fritz. And Fritz and Harry, Leiber and Fisher, Pfeffer and the Mauser. Two of the most interesting people I ever had the opportunity to meet. I got to meet a couple, 3 really interesting people while I was at TSR. But Fritz and Harry were pretty incredible. They had this game they'd been playing with each other, with miniatures and across the floor and stuff, since the 30s. And Gary was an unabashed, unashamed fan of Fritz's writing, as I was too, though not quite to the intensity level of Gary. And Guidon Games was was trying to put out a board game based on Harry and Fritz's old game that they played. And when I got to meet them, I got to see them in their costumes, and they are Pfaffert and the Gray Mauser. Harry was the Mauser, and Fritz is a very, very tall individual. He could look very menacing in a good-looking suit of armor. In any event, Guidon couldn't figure out to do it. They couldn't do it. I'm not sure we got the opportunity. And of course, Gary, being an enormous fan, and saw the opportunity to do this. And so he and Brian elected to get involved with Lankhmar. And they came to a convention one year, and were at the banquet and whatever, and probably scratching their heads wondering what was going on. I got to be good friends with Harry. He was quite a unique individual. Fritz was a very gracious man, but I think he understood less of what we were doing. Even though what he and Harry had been doing is kind of playing roles, we took it to another level. Unfortunately, the game was a stinker. The mechanics and what have you were sound, but it wasn't Lankhmar, it wasn't Pfeffer and the Mauser. It was just a game set in the city of Lankhmar, or the country. That was all it was, and it didn't sell particularly well. It didn't deserve to sell particularly well. Some people bought it because it was TSR's latest release. Some people bought it because they were fans of Fritz. But it was a stinker, no doubt about it. And then I was asked about another stinker, and that was Star Probe. The Star Probe was decided upon before I got there. I believe I may have actually seen it printed up either when I got there or within a week or two of my getting there. It might have been delivered. It was a 75 release, but that means it was, probably vetted and worked on in 74 or at least early 75 before I got there. So I had nothing to do with that. Let's see, I took a couple of notes on that. John Snyder developed it. I was asked, and I'm still trying to figure out this connection. I was asked if it had anything to do, an adventure in there with the Temple of the Frog. And not that I know of. Again, I didn't edit this book. I don't know if John Snyder knew Dave Arneson and, had maybe played in there and did some sort of homage or whatever. I simply don't know. I thought the game was a stinker. I could not get enthused about it. I had no desire. To be honest, I don't ever recall seeing it or even hearing of it being played around the company. And I think one year we might have set up a couple, provided a couple of games that could have been Gen Cons or a Winter Fantasy, one of the smaller cons that we ran once or twice a year. And that was it. We never did it again because I don't think we filled either one of them. The game just wasn't that big a deal. And then it was eclipsed by Traveler, which came out later and was a big deal. And so it just kind of languished there. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just there's nothing there that hook you or gets you excited or whatever. I'm going to be missing a week of this. It'll be 2 weeks before the next one of these, or at least 10 days before the next one of these is published. It's Saturday morning right now, and I'm leaving for Game Hole on Wednesday and won't be back until Sunday, and probably won't be doing any of this until Monday or Tuesday, though that I do intend to talk about Game Hole, talk about how some of the games went. I'm running a new kind of game that I'm going to have some fun with. That's about all I've got to talk about tonight. This morning. Again, I look for your comments and stuff and follow-ups. As you'll notice, those of you who asked, I have printed the names of all the games, so it'll be easier. All of those, I give you the admonition to keep your eye out for them. And again, if you see them at inexpensively in a game store or thrift stores, whatever, and particularly if they look to be intact, by all means, snag them. Serenissima has a lot of little ship pieces, and you may or may not find it intact, but if it's only $4 or $5, snag it anyway, because somebody will pay you twice that for the ships that they need for their complete game. It's one of those. The rest of them are not so piece dependent or piece heavy as Serenissima is. I'll see you. No, actually, sounds egotistical. You'll see me in about 10 or 12 days. And with that, I'll sign off. Good gaming.